Hi, so this is my aster pannier. I've had this for a couple of months now. It's all run in. Hopefully this video will help you. They're a great engine, they're really powerful once they get going. So the key features, if you already know this, this is the spirit valve and the spirit tank. You've got your gauge glass, pressure gauge, safety valve, the steam dome, which there's a small screw, comes undone, and this is your boiler inside there, and you can fill it through there. This is where the lubricator is for the steam oil. You undo this small screw there, and underneath here we unscrew that. I'll show you in a minute where the steam oil goes in. Underneath here on the front of the cylinder you have a drain cock, which is a little push button to let the water and steam go through when you first fire up the engine. I'll show you how to use that. And forgive me, I'm not a very good video editor. This is on my phone, so I'm just going to pause it. So fueling the loco, in the UK we use methylated spirits. You can also use isopropyl alcohol. I've already taken the cap off. Make sure that the valve is screwed down, and I use a syringe, which is difficult to do with one hand. And you want to fill the tank as much as possible to below the screw thread that the cap goes into. And I think from memory it takes about 90 cc's or 90 millilitres. You don't want to overfill, otherwise it won't work. So I've put some spirit fuel in, and that is too full how that is now, where it's starting to climb back up the threads. That's too much in there, so I'll take a little bit out. It just wants to sit below the threads, otherwise it uses atmospheric pressure and it won't work. Again, apologies for the video quality, but you can see now that it's sat well inside the tank. So we'll put the cap back on now. So now we've filled it up with fuel, put the cap back on and leave that valve shut. Now we're going to fill the boiler. You've got your gauge glass here. Start with the loco completely empty. So take the nut, the dome and the nut off, turn it upside down, completely empty it of any water. I use rainwater. You can just use tap water, but you'll get scale, lime scale in. I use a tiny funnel, and what we do is you fill it up on the gauge glass to around 2/3. Don't go any more than 2/3 on the gauge glass. This allows for a head of steam. So as the water gets hotter, it expands into steam, as you probably know already, and that remaining third will give you the room for the steam to go into the boiler. You know, it's the space in the boiler. You can fill it to around a half, but you don't get as long running time. But I found 2/3 works absolutely, probably the best. So I'll do that now. You don't need to see a video of that. So hopefully, as you can see now, that's 2/3 to 3/4 full on the boiler and the gauge glass. The engine will not work if you fill it any more than this. This is normally enough water to give you a good 15 to 20 minute run. These locos don't run for a long time. You've only got a small fuel tank. You have got a boiler feed, which I think you already know. There's some members in the UK that build a tender to go behind, and they'll run the spirit pipe through into the burners and onto the boiler with a little electric pump to keep it running a bit longer. But to be honest, it doesn't take that long to refill it and refuel it once it's cooled down. I normally get, now it's worn in, I normally get about 15 to 20 minute run on a loop. We'll do the displacement lubricator next. I've put the steam dome back on. I've put the nut back in. With all these nuts, just do them up finger tight. If you over tighten them, obviously it'll strip the threads. I think they're metric fine threads on a lot of this stuff. So for the oil, this is steam oil that needs to go in here. I use a syringe with a stainless steel end, and every time I come to use it, we'll take the oil out and put new oil in. I tend to use the old oil to go around and lubricate all the running parts inside the engine. So it just saves wasting oil. So I'll do that now. So in the syringe, I've got it's about 3 cc's or 3 millilitres of steam oil. It has to be steam oil. And I think it's about 3 millilitres that this little lubricator will take. So I'll pop that in now. Again, like with the spirit valve and the spirit tank, don't overfill it, because it won't work. It has to have a bit of space at the top of the oil, so that's probably fine now. It has to have a bit of space just on top of the oil for the steam to come in and condense on the top and push, well, yeah, it pushes the oil up into the cylinder when it's running. So I'll put the nut back in now, and again that just needs to be just nipped up. You shouldn't get any steam leaking from that, just nip it up. So now we've got fuel, water and oil in the loco, we can actually look at getting it up to steam. So it didn't take very long at all. Your burners are under here. When I'm running it on the bench like this, I tend to use a mirror, and you can see in the reflection of the mirror the burners. Setting up the burners is an art in itself, and if you want I can talk you through that, because I've slightly modified mine and it does run a lot better. That's a discussion for another time. Let's get you started. So you need a blower to raise it up to steam. Mine's a bit of what we call a bodge, so this is a bit of copper pipe that fits over, and then I've used a hairdryer which I've cut down and stuck inside a funnel, and this is needed to suck the fire through and get the boiler up to pressure. It doesn't have to be up to working pressure, but you want to get it up to at least 1 kilogram per centimetre square. 1 kilogram per centimetre squared. And we'll show you that. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me over the blower. So if you haven't got a blower, that might be where you're having issues, because you need to have an electric blower to get it up to any sort of pressure. These engines don't have enough natural draft to suck the fire through. I found that out the hard way by melting one of the coupling rods, because I couldn't see the fire on the other side. It's my own fault. Luckily I made another one. So we'll get the fire lit, get the blower going. Hopefully you'll be able to hear what's going on. Before I do, inside here, you probably know that's the regulator, this one here, and this is the steam blower. You want both of these just shut. They don't need to be screwed down really hard. They just want to, again, a lot of this stuff is very delicate, so you just want it to be sort of finger tight. These both need to be shut. You won't get any steam up otherwise. So to get the fire going, we'll open up the valve. And the beauty of having the dyed methylated spirits fuel is under here. You can see there's a silicone pipe, and you should be able to just see the purple fuel coming through. If you can't, then it will never get going. We'll let it soak for a couple of seconds, and then I'll use one of these barbecue lighters and we can get the fire going. Not quite. Sometimes I need to turn the blower on. There we go. So the fire's going now. We'll turn the blower on. I'll turn the video off because it will probably be very loud. Hopefully you can hear me, but you can see turning the blower on draws the fire through a lot better. So we'll leave this running now, and we need to get up to 1 kilogram on the pressure gauge. So hopefully you can hear me over the noise of the blower, but within 3 minutes we're up to 1 kilogram on the pressure gauge and climbing. I tend to go just a little bit more, so about 1.2, and then I very, very gently just crack open the blower and you'll see the pressure drop. So we haven't quite got enough steam yet. I'll close it back down. And you see how very quickly it climbs up, which is good. And we'll just crack open the blower again. Just turn the blower open, and it's holding that pressure now. So what I'll do is I'll take the electric blower off, and now it's a lot quieter, and you can hopefully just hear the steam blower going, and it's still holding pressure, so that's good. And so I'll open up the blower a bit more now, the steam blower. Hopefully you can just hear that climbing. And you can see how the water in the boiler on the gauge glass has expanded. Now once it gets up to temperature, the gauge glass isn't very reliable because it's so small. What I tend to do is, when I can see at the bottom of the gauge glass that there's no water left, I just turn it off and stop it then. Sometimes you might find that there's actually more water in the boiler left than you think, but it's always better to be safe rather than burn the boiler out. You can see how quickly it's climbing on the steam now. If I open the blower more, you will get a bit of water coming out. Even filling the boiler sort of half to 2/3, you'll still get water coming out because you haven't got a superheated steam. You can see it's up to 2. I'll just close the blower down a bit so we're not wasting all the steam, and it should hopefully climb. And what we're looking for is when it hits 3 kilograms per centimetre squared, the safety valve should blow off. There's a bit of a leak which I need to resolve on this one. If it goes over 3, you need to adjust the safety valve, which is done by screwing the central part of the valve in or out, depending on if you need more or less pressure. Again, if you need a hand with that, I can help you. You can see it's climbing quite well now. The blower is sounding a lot cleaner. We're coming up to 3. I'll just turn the blower down a little bit, so I'm not wasting all my steam. and in a second it will hit 3 and blow the valve off. So all in all, to actually get it up to steam pressure, working pressure, takes about 6 to 7 minutes. Obviously when I first did it, it only took me forever, and I nearly set fire to the loco and all sorts, so it is very much about practice. You can see now, just as that hits 3, the valve should lift off. There we go. So now we're ready. Hopefully you've done all your lubrication, and if your train is your loco, sorry, is running already, all this motion will be very free. These locos are slip eccentric, so you need to turn the wheels in a direction that you want it to go before you open up the regulator, which is quite difficult to do with one hand, so if you just bear with me. So I've spun the wheels anti-clockwise on this view to go forward, and obviously if you wanted to go reverse you'd pull the train backwards. We'll turn the blower down a little bit now, just to keep the fire ticking over, and we'll lift up the regulator valve, which will let a bit of steam into the cylinder. Now, I think at the start I told you about the drain cock, so this will get rid of any condensation in the cylinders. And there you go, so it's trying to go already. With these gauge 1 locos, you'll probably need to spin the wheels first. There we go. So I've shut the blower off, and I'll shut the regulator down a little bit, and hopefully the steam pressure will come back up, which it should. And there you have it. Mine runs very smoothly because I've spent a lot of time running it with lots of oil, pushing it round by hand upside down, so I can see if there's any parts of the motion clashing or anything. These locos are very fast running on the track by themselves. They'll pull an awful lot of load behind them, but they are fantastic. It's really, once I've got used to it, it's really been a good loco. One of the modifications I have made is I've used ceramic wool in the burner, and if you want me to talk to you about that, I can. You can hear it won't run very much slower than this. I don't know why. It probably wants maybe the valve timing looking at, but the engines are so small. Hopefully that's helped you out. If you've got any questions, let me know. Thanks very much.